your legal rights. These are things that are essential, fundamental things that we value in this province and in this country. What it really boils down to here is that we have 3 years before we're going to see a provincial election take place. 2.5 years before it's scheduled, then they're going to have to get sworn in. Then they're going to be assigned whatever it is, ministry positions that they're assigned to, and then we can get on to repealing bills such as DRIPA. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 years. You're all familiar with the Cowichan case. What's happened with the First Nations band? They're taking a huge chunk of Vancouver, which has affected 2 million British Columbians. Our population here is 5.5 billion people. That's over 1/3 of our population has been affected from that one court case. Now, David Eby has already said that he will think about some amendments for DRIPA, which is not good enough, okay? Because that kind of legislation, it creates 2 classes of society. We are all equal here. There is definitely Indigenous, and we respect that. We understand that there are some things in this life that can be reconciled. However, reconciliation doesn't classify to any one of us as theft. Because when your government's taking something from you and giving it to somebody else that you bought, you paid for, you're not the thief here. We need to be really clear right now that this is your opportunity. Now, what we're really going to need is for people to pick up the rope and pull with us. Because at the end of the day, how many people, I mean, you look sharp. You look like you guys can think about a few things and figure it out, critical think for yourself. How many people do you think it would take to actually be successful with one recall on that specific team? I would say at least 120 people to 150 people that you can rotate in and you can rotate out. And they can say, I'm good for one day a week, one day, and then Tuesday. Wednesday. You put your teams together. You need greeters. You need qualifiers. You need to have registered canvassers to pull this off. Not everybody has to be a Canadian citizen to actually help. We need volunteers. So this is the time now to get engaged. There's a table over here. Leslie and Marcella are working at. They have all kinds of information. There's recalls on the table. There's already a website, recalleb.ca. And there's another recall, but I'm going to let the other fellow come over here because it's his initiative, and I'm really proud of him. He's a young man, and he's taking a lot of responsibility. And I'll tell you what, if we can see that type of passion coming from a young man like that, it better damn well motivate the rest of us to take up the rope and pull with him. Now, I'm just going to leave a lot. There's a lot to be said. We're going to have some amazing guest speakers here today. I'm really proud of the people that we're putting up on this platform in front of David Eby's constituency office. You know, of course, we invited David Eby to come out here with us. Sorry, guys. I have to hold that, I guess. Yeah, like as if he's going to come out and speak to you because he's not accountable to any one of us. So it is our responsibility to take the initiative ourselves. I'd like to, first of all, just say a couple of words about one of my friends that's been in this fight since I have, and you know, he's somebody that I have a lot of respect for. But let me just read this out here. So, introducing Hard Bomb. I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can see it. From one patriot to another, his passion and commitment to making a difference stands out. Rather than staying silent, Harm has been a steadfast voice for the truth, willing to step onto the front lines on issues ranging from COVID, narrative, to Soji 123. At this event, he will introduce an innovative approach to governance that puts power back into the hands of the people, promotes full transparency, and shows how the public can take part in decision making. This approach is called direct democracy. Come on up, Mark.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, James. Good to see you all. It's good to see all the people come out. People that generally care about their country and the future of their children. So we're living through a very pivotal time in human history, for sure. And what you're seeing right now is centralization. We see centralization of medicine, of the media, of finance, of governance. And that's what I'll be covering here because it's the centralization of governance that allows for corruption and deceit, the general decline of public trust. Now, the main thing that caused that is representative democracy. Now, representative democracy is a throwback to the agriculture age. We were all living spread out, uninformed. We lacked the technology to communicate. What we did is we elected our local person, we put them on horseback, and sent them to the capital to voice our concerns. Well, that helped that time period, but we're further along now, and we need innovative solutions. Our current model of representative democracy doesn't just allow for consolidation of power, but it facilitates it. Direct democracy is a necessary evolution for an era defined by collaboration and open source innovation. And Switzerland offers a compelling glimpse of this potential. Historically, the Swiss have been one of the few European countries that have dodged having all the influx of migrants. So actually, most European countries have been overwhelmed by the migrants, which is completely, complicated to say the least. And more recently, they voted in public referendums to maintain cash, to constitutionally protect cash.
Are you able to hop on X and see if my live stream's all good?
Financial independence and
Because I can't see comments or anything with it up, so.
They also allow for cryptocurrency. So this is like a strategic strength
We got
the
video.
global
Do we have
rollout of
audio?
central bank digital currencies. As you know, most nations are bringing that in strong.
Okay, wicked. Thank you.
Resisting that. And that has a lot to do with their direct democracies. And Switzerland also has some of the lowest crime rate in the world in the European countries, and also high gun ownership too. I'm sure the two are connected. But Switzerland's not perfect. It still struggles with centralized media. It's still alive to the public. But the online forums represent how the truth can be sussed out through open debate. And that's what we need here. It's basically like crowdsourced governance. And then the nice thing about online forums too is they can really level the playing field. It allows claims to be verified in real time. Check all the sources and all the facts. And direct democracy can also be more of a dynamic system where you can either choose to vote yourself or you can delegate your vote to somebody that you trust or a proven debater. And this creates more of a merit-based system rather than handing power to a politically elite. The technological acceleration we're witnessing is compounding, and with it,
I'm good.
is the pace of life. Archaic, hierarchical systems of control can't keep up to the modern decision making that we need currently. As these old systems fracture, they'll create a vacuum. If you don't fill that vacuum with something that's decentralized and agile, it'll be filled in by something that's even more centralized and controlling. Direct democracy is the ultimate free market of ideas. It's one of the best ways to fortify our civil liberties. We must begin planting the seeds of this, and one of the best ways to do that is reforming the BC Referendum Act. Currently, it requires the cabinet to initiate a referendum. We need to change that so the citizens can collectively initiate a referendum. And and change some of these policies around. These liberal talking points and ideas just get wiped right out in debate, right? You probably all know that. It is dissolved under critical questions. We need to bring that back. So that concludes my speech on direct democracy. Check it out on what we're doing in Switzerland. You can see how we're online. And thanks a lot.
I'm gonna tape this board thing up, so sorry about the crackling for a minute, okay? Just bear with me. Check one, check two. Is that better? All right, so Barb, I didn't mean to just shoo you away. Come back here for a second. Just so everybody knows that there was a time when I was pretty much just walking blindly, like most people walking past us today, and that was based off the fact that I believe that if you're willing to do your part in society, that we're protected because we work for a living. We have institutions that really care for us. We have the protection of our police. We have a good healthcare structure. We have so many things going for us here in this beautiful country that we have so much to be proud of. But at the end of the day, when that COVID narrative came around and so many businesses got affected and there was too much money being handed out, that kind of thing, it really woke me up. And from there, I just kind of put both feet on the ground and started trying to learn as much as I can about what's really going on because it really is so important. And I just wanted to say that Bart was one of the first people that I actually, because we were friends ahead of time, I called him out because he was awake before I was. And it didn't take me very long to catch on that it was probably better to get on with life than it is to fight with all your friends. But anyways, thanks, Harm, for putting up with me through that little phase of my life.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little story about this. So me and James originally met at the gym, right? And once in a while, I talk about these conspiracy theories, right? And James would say to me, man, is that right? Is that true? I'd be in the streets protesting. I'm like, okay, good. I won't talk about this anymore, whatever else. Let's see how this plays out, right? So when the whole virus started and we had a bit of a falling out about that, a few months later, I'm downtown Vancouver at Tactical Plaza. Mother's Day, I believe. A little further, is that James? Sure enough, true to his word, he's in the street protesting. I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Because a lot of people just talk, big talk, right? This guy can watch and walk too. I really appreciate that.
Cheers, brother. Much love, much respect, and for everything you do, bro. Okay, so let's I'm gonna play something here for you guys. Are you familiar with who Maxime Bernier is? Yep. Okay, so we had Maxime Bernier come and speak for us. It was a really amazing initiative. We were at the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and we were working with the COVID narrative. Now, we made friends with Max. Marcella herself ran for the PPC during the snap election in 2021, and we really respect what he has to say because he's always had Canada First approach. And so before Marcella comes up and does her speech, I have a video he sent. He wasn't able to make it today. We did ask him, but he had another engagement. So he's here with us in spirit.
Why do you have kids' genitals written on a bookboard? That's insane.
I couldn't be with you today, but your first phone sends a clear message. You will not be silent. Not when private property rights are under direct attack. The NDP, the Recall Law, is not about reconciliation. It undermines the security of your land, your home, your farm, your business. This isn't fear-mongering, it's a fact. Last December, the BCC Court of Appeal ruled that Billboard gives Honveer the force of law with immediate legal effect. Judges can now rewrite provincial laws through an indigenous rights lens. That means your property rights are now just a suggestion. Think about that. Your home is now subject to a legal cloud of uncertainty. Your businesses is at risk. Your ability to get a loan or attract investment gone. Who invests in a province where ownership means nothing? Every major project, housing,
Make sure you
roads,
share the
hospitals,
stream, please,
mines,
guys. Get this out.
now faces a new open-ended legal threat.
I can't see chat,
That's
but I see
why
that
we
there's
are
29
here
of
today.
you. Thank you for the
That's
support.
why we are backing the David ED Recall Initiative. The NDP does not work for you anymore. They work for the globalists, the activists. They are handing your right to unelected judges and UN declarations, and they expect you to just accept it. Enough. We need a government that defends private property, that respects the rule of law, that answers to the people, not activists. The People's Party of Canada will withdraw from the Universal Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We will fight every encroachment from globalist declarations or activist courts. The right to own property is fundamental, non-negotiable. So here's my call to Premier Eby. Repeal DRIPA completely. Today, you are showing to Premier Eby that you won't back down. He must back down. You have created a movement that cannot be stopped. Let all elected officials of this province know that you will not stop until DRIPA is gone. Your presence here and your signature on the petition have already made your voice heard. You will not be silent. You will fight for your homes, your businesses, and your future. Your action will put an end to this erosion of your life. Stay strong and free.
That was Maxime Bernier, everyone.
All right, guys. Max and Bernie, let's hear it from Max, okay? We had a few politicians around this province that actually, cared more about us than he cares about, I don't know, his paycheck, I guess. David Eby, oh boy. Okay, so anyways, this beautiful woman over here, Marcella Desjarlais, aka Bella, she's my partner, and I'll just read this out quickly, and then she's got a speech for you. So everybody who's going to be talking, please talk somewhere away from Excuse me. Hello? You guys, we're recording these speeches, so if you're gonna be talking, just go away from that, please. Thank you. This woman values family, nature, truth, and integrity. When working for a cause as important as life itself, to free people, Bella's innovation and ability to connect have brought together nationwide initiatives with purpose to stand for freedom regardless of the consequences. Because giving authority over to your own bodily autonomy to a ruthless poison pushing doctor who has sold out, not a chance. If it's a fight this government wants, then let's rise up. This is the power of a mother, a patriot, and a woman who knows exactly who she is and what she brings to the research. Please welcome Bella Marcella. This is what you need to know about DRIPA.
Okay, so today I'm going to be sharing about UNDRIP and DRIPA. Show of hands, who knows what UNDRIP is? Show of hands, who knows what DRIPA is? Are they good for Canada?
No.
Are they good for BC?
No.
Are you a homeowner?
Yes.
Do you have hope?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, maybe I'm going to take that hope away because I'm going to share a little bit of research, like Jane said, okay? So what I really liked about Max's message is that I had all my notes put together and printed out, and then I listened to what he had to say. So you're going to hear some things on repeat, but that's okay because the message is the same. And that just means that we're on the same path and in the same wavelength and on the same truth to educate Canadians and British Columbians about the laws in Canada. So today I'm speaking about 4 interconnected pieces of policy that shape British Columbia. DRIPA, UNDRIP, FPIC, and the 2021 amendments to the Interpretation Act. Anybody know what FPIC is? I'll get to it. So these are not separate ideas. They work together, and understanding how they connect is essential. Here are the dates clearly on when these were all passed. UNDRIP in Canada, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People was originally adopted by the United Nations in 2007. Canada formally passed federal legislation to implement it, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People Act came into effect on June 21st of 2021. Now, for many of you that do not know, I am First Nations status Indian in Canada. I stand with every single one of you here today, which is why I'm speaking on this, because I don't agree with my government. I am Canadian, like you, first and foremost. I am British Columbian, like you, first and foremost. So pardon me while I have my say. DRIPA in British Columbia is the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. It was passed in the BC legislature on November 26, 2019, and received royal assent and became law November 28, 2019. In BC, the Interpretations Amendment Act was passed November 23rd, 2021, and it received royal assent on November 25th. And since it comes into force on royal assent, it's legally effective starting November 25th. So the simple timeline is this. 2007, United Nations adopts UNDRIP. In 2019, BC passes DRIPA. In 2021, Canada passes the federal UNDRIP Act. And in 2021, BC passes the Interpretations Amendments Act. It all plays together, and I'm going to explain it. So UNDRIP is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and it's an international framework that outlines rights related to land, culture, governance, and self-determination. In BC, UNDRIP has been implemented through provincial law under DRIPA, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. DRIPA's purpose is to align BC laws with UNDRIP over time. So FPIC is free, prior, and informed consent, and that's the core principle of UNDRIP. So free means no pressure, coercion, manipulation, or threat. Consent must be voluntarily given. Prior must happen before any project or decision starts, not after approvals are already underway. Informed is full, honest information must be provided. Includes impacts like environmental, cultural, and economic, risks, and alternatives. Information must be understandable and accessible. And consent. Indigenous groups have the right to approve or reject. It's more than just being consulted, it implies meaningful agreement. Now, that's UNDRIP. And one of the last points I said there excluded every one of us standing here today. Because you're not an Indigenous group. And as they get going, you're going to see more and more that you've been left out of the equation. Is DRIPA good for British Columbia?
No.
So here's the 2021 Interpretations Act and how the amendment relates to UNDRIP. The new interpretive clause, the amendment added a new section 8.1 to BC's Interpretation Act. Under this clause, every potential law and regulation must be construed as being consistent with the declaration, meaning the UN declaration, UNDRIP. Did you hear that? Yeah, all the laws in BC have to run with that, okay? So also laws must be read so they uphold and they don't abrogate or derogate from Aboriginal and treaty rights recognized by Section 31 of the Constitution Act of 1982. Who endured social studies in high school? I hated it, but I'll tell you what, as an adult, I love it now. And I wish I paid more attention because it's really coming into effect today. This is stuff I learned in high school. Right here in Point Grey, I went to Lord Byng Secondary School. This is where I grew up, right here. My mom, last time we were here, was so proud of me to be standing here in front of our premier's office. Because I was a terrible teenager. But she's proud of me to be standing up and pushing back. So 2, the purpose and context. According to the BC government, the change is part of implementing BC's declaration. TRIPA. The interpretation amendment helps ensure that when a court or tribunal is interpreting BC laws, they are guided towards reading that respect Indigenous rights rather than undermining them. Did you hear British Columbians' rights in there? No. I didn't. Did you hear courts in there? Do we live in a democracy? No. Yeah. The government framed it as a universal, non-derogation clause. It makes clear that provincial statutes are not supposed to derogate. It takes away from Indigenous rights. So the legal impact and the limits, this change does not automatically rewrite or repeal existing laws, but according to legal analysis, it does not itself strike down or invalidate laws that may conflict with UNDRIP. It's more about how laws are interpreted. Your interpretation, my interpretation, the government's interpretation, the court's interpretation, the legal definition and interpretation, it's all interpreted. In other words, when there is ambiguity in a statute, courts and regulators should not or should favor interpretations consistent with UNDRIP and with Section 35 rights. But if a law is very clearly inconsistent with UNDRIP, this interpretive clause does not necessarily grant the power to read in UNDRIP or declare the law invalid. It doesn't automatically give UNDRIP full force of the law. Reconciliation is an alignment goal. These changes are part of BC's broader alignment of laws strategy under its Declaration Act aimed at progressively making provincial laws more consistent with UNDRIP. The Declaration Act Secretariat, a body set up under UNDRIP, oversees this work. Now, why this all matters and why people should be concerned and are concerned about this. Supporters of DRIPA see this as a meaningful step towards reconciliation. It helps embed respect for Indigenous rights into the interpretation of all provincial laws, giving courts and government a legal pointer in how to apply the laws. Those opposed,
Thank
I
you
mean
for
those
everyone for
affected,
joining. Please share the stream. I see you guys. I just don't see chats.
are concerned about uncertainty. Because UNDRIP is very broad and aspirational in some respects, requiring laws to be interpreted consistently, with it could lead to legal unpredictability. There's also a question about how consistency will be measured in practice, and whether courts will lean heavily on UNDRIP language versus existing Canadian constitutional law when there's a real conflict. So under UNDRIP, free, prior, and informed consent is presented as a standard for decisions affecting Indigenous lands and rights. To whose lands and rights? British Columbians? No. Yeah, I didn't think so. I'm just checking to see if you're paying attention. So, again, on the surface, these ideas, they sound reasonable, but the application is what matters. Now, what UNDRIP actually is. UNDRIP is a non-binding international declaration. Did you hear that? It's a non-binding international declaration adopted by the United Nations. It is not a treaty, and it does not create new legal powers for the UN or Indigenous governments. In Canada, it functions as a framework for reconciliation and guiding law and policy, not as a direct override of Canadian sovereignty. So land ownership remains governed by Crown and rules, private property law, treaty, and Indigenous land agreements. Any changes to land ownership would need to occur through existing legal mechanisms like expropriations for public services, court decisions. What we are seeing here in BC, oh yeah, court decisions or negotiated treaties.
Barry Neufeld entered the chat.
UNDRIP and DRIPA, carrying on here. Primary participants in UNDRIP are the federal and provincial governments. They implement UNDRIP principles into law and policy, and they're responsible for consulting with Indigenous groups. With who? Indigenous groups. On laws, regulations, or projects affect Indigenous rights and lands. I'm sorry, did you hear British Columbians in there? Did you hear Canadians in there? I didn't either. And I'm First Nation, I'm sorry guys, I'm just not in alignment with this. Indigenous peoples, First Nation, Métis, the Inuit. Check. BC? No. Central stakeholders under UNDRIP and DRIPA. Free, prior, informed consent applies to their land and resources, and governments must negotiate, consult, and reach agreements. Special interest groups, non-governing organizations are optional, but check. Indigenous people, British Columbians, nope. Sometimes they're involved in advocacy, these special interest groups. Sometimes they're involved in monitoring or advising on Indigenous rights. The Tides Foundation, check that out. Just throwing that out there because they're involved with the Chiefs in BC. They can provide input, but they have no legal decision-making authority. So where the general public fits in, that's us, the rest of British Columbia, the majority of the population. Not a direct participant in free, prior, and informed consent consultations. UNDRIP and DRIPA focus on government and Indigenous negotiations. Ordinary citizens do not have a legal role in these consultations. We get what's decided, like those court decisions they've been throwing out. David Eby has been tossing out, like the Cowichan decision, and there's information here on the table about that. So the indirect involvement is that the public input can occur in broader policy consultation, environmental assessments, or municipal planning. Roll up your sleeves, people. Get involved. Check it out. Don't sit back. Get involved.
Yeah.
Citizens may participate via public hearings, petitions on the table, submissions on projects or advocacy like we're doing right now. But these are not part of the legal FPIC process mandated under UNDRIP and DRIPA. But I say it again, roll up your sleeves and get involved. Do not be silent. Our voice matters. Under to 10 Indigenous ownership of any land that were occupied on, or merely used, whereas Canadian law requires proof of regular and exclusive occupation of land to demonstrate Aboriginal title. That is a quote by Jeffrey S. Moisey, KC. He's a retired senior lawyer who served as legal counsel on Indigenous law in the province of BC, advising 6 successive governments on Aboriginal law for over more than 30 years. Last page. So, what DRIPA affects? Consultation and consent. Governments must work with Indigenous people on decisions affecting land, resources, and laws. The legislative alignment is that new provincial laws must be checked for consistency with UNDRIP principles, including the right to free, prior, and informed consent. Shared decision making, which encourages negotiation and agreements with Indigenous communities before approving projects on their traditional territories. But I didn't hear anything about British Columbians in there, like the general population. So when decisions about shared resources hinge on consent from specific groups, it changes how authority is distributed in this province. It challenges the principle that decisions are made through a system accountable to all citizens. And there must be an honest conversation about the long-term implications for governance, economic stability, and equal participation in decision-making. Could you agree with that? Because once implemented, these frameworks shape not only our individual projects, but the future direction of this province. And that affects us all now and our future generations. So here's a website you can go to by the Western Standard, sign their petition. It's dropdripa.ca. But over here on the table, I have 3 QR codes and website addresses. Come over here, take a picture, go and sign. There are 3 petitions for David Keating to repeal DRIPA. It needs to be out of this province. It needs to be gone. Bye-bye. It is not for British Columbians. If you're a homeowner, it's definitely not for you. So put your MLA on your call and email list. They represent you, and they need to bring these issues forward. You hold them accountable. Again, I'll say it one more time. Roll up your sleeves. Do not sit silent. Complacency does not help anyone. Can I get a heck yeah?
Yeah.
Bear with me for a second. I'm going to try to just secure this crap a little bit. Yeah, that's way better. Yay.
Sorry guys, just a really quick second here. Over at our table, but please come up when people aren't speaking. And if you come to the table, keep your chatter down to but on the table are links to the petitions. All of the information that I have here on UNDRIP and DRIPA are in a binder. Everything that is in this binder will be on our website, standunitedbc.ca. And there are also business cards here that you can take so you can find that information. It'll all be there. All the pamphlets and flyers that are on the table will also be on the website for downloading and sharing.
Thank you very much, Marcella. So I'm actually pretty impressed. Nowadays it's very hard to get anybody engaged to come out and take responsibility. This really isn't a bad-sized crowd, and what I'm looking at a very diverse and business class type of people that are paying attention to what's going on here in front of our Premier's constituency office. So kudos to all of you for being here today. And that's an excellent flag that I saw the other one you have, David Edie. That's terrific. Anyhow, we're gonna keep this event going because we do have a very busy schedule. So if Honveer, would you be join me here? I just wanted to introduce Honveer, Randhawa here. As a lawyer, Honveer brings an important perspective on the LPOA. That's the Legal Professions and Occupations Act. Particularly concerns around conflicts of interest, the need for legal representation to remain independent of the state. Honveer ran the October 19th, 2024 provincial election, delivering an impressive campaign for the Conservative Party, Surrey Guildford, falling just 22 votes short. Just 22 votes short, people. It was a near win that would have been a tremendous asset for British Columbia. His commitment to BC remains strong. Honveer continues to stand as a leader in Surrey and is now the Conservative candidate running to become Surrey's next mayor. Let's hear it!
Yeah!
For this opportunity. And also, I believe this is for a very great cause. For fairness, I have seen the legal profession when we are working for our clients. Our first step is to bring them here. Hello. Oh, yeah.
Here we go. Yes.
Again, I'll start. So, as a lot of you already know me, as I ran from Surrey Guildford, and it was only a 22 votes short. So, on the date of the election, I was declared a winner with 103 votes. But then later on, a mail-in ballot fiasco happened, and I lost by only 22 votes. Regardless, I took an action in legal challenge and everything on my own cost. I believe in fairness. I believe in that things should be done the right way. Now, as far as the Legal Profession Act is concerned, what is the concern with the Legal Profession Act is this, that first lawyers had autonomy, basically. The law society was independent, but now they are trying to appoint a committee. The ECNDP brought a Bill 21. Now the Legal Profession Act, the lawyers, such as myself, if I'm representing you against a government overreach, so let's say you're unhappy with the government, they have done something, you want a lawyer to represent you, you come to me, I have to think about it twice because now the very regulation on top of us, which is the law society, will have 17 board members, out of which 12 of them will be ECNDP appointed, the government appointed. Now you can understand what tremendous pressure that puts on the legal profession. This is the highest level of conflict you can think of. And the poor thing is, and I would say the rushed thing is, that our premier is a lawyer. He should have known better, but he didn't. So, is it intentional or is it rushed? Just like Rupa. As you can see right now, the problems we are facing with the Land Acknowledgement Act is because it was rushed. There hasn't been a proper opposition opportunity given. And now they're trying to rectify it at the cost of the taxpayers. The chaos they created, now the property rights into jeopardy, and now they're saying we will suspend it and we will work on it while everybody lives in fear. The same way, when you look at the Legal Profession Act, they rushed it, and they still haven't properly implemented it. So this is what they say. They say this is about fairness and access to legal system, but it's neither. It's actually denying you the legal services in a systematic way. Even me standing over here, of course, it's for a cause. I'm very happy to be here, but you have to understand the ramifications it can have for me.
I see you 64 people. Thank you for the support. If you can like and share, that would be great. Thank you. Let's get this stream out.
Loans you have to pay off after that, and then you have this lawyer who's willing to help you or want to help you against the government's poor decision or something that has affected you, while being fearful of the fact that you could be disciplined for some reason you might not even think so. Now, I'm not saying everybody is not professional. People have to be professional. I get that. But why would you need lawyers if everybody follows the law? Now we're expecting that these 12 board members will not have any concern if you act against the government for the British Columbians' rights. So this is where the problem is. So problem is not just with the Legal Profession Act. What I'm trying to explain over here is the approach that BCNDP has taken so far. And the approach has been, let's rush the legislation, let us not do proper public consultation, and then basically, let's go fix it. Fix it at whose cost? Your cost, my cost. I pay taxes, you pay taxes. Is that what we elect these people for? Absolutely not. And even my case, the reason we could not overturn that seat, and I say it confidently because I proved it. They said you could not find the regularities within 30 days. Because the legislation, just a piece of paper said, find the mistakes within 30 days. I found it within 70 days. You can appreciate it how difficult it would be to find 22 wrong votes out of a 20,000 votes. Anyways, long story short, that is done and dusted, but we have the future of British Columbia in front of us. I love the fact how everyone has united today because voice does matter. I know sometimes you feel like, what is going to do? It does do. And I can give you a very simple example. The extortion in Surrey right now is a rampant issue. It's a huge issue. I myself, along with many other residents of Surrey, we had to stand on the side of the road for 4 different days. Then only the mayor in Surrey declared a national emergency. So voice does matter. If you're gonna be sitting in your homes and keep on being upset about this, nobody cares. When you stand here and they see this a degree of public shaming, then only they will start being more accountable. There's nothing wrong with regulation. Regulation should be there, lawyers should be regulated, but how are they regulated? From last century, I mean a century, they have been independently doing it. And I can proudly say, in British Columbia, the standard of the lawyers is one of the highest. And what was wrong with it? Nothing. So then why did we have to bring this in? Again, a political overreach. Well, that's my message for today. I really appreciate it. And, James, thank you so much for this because if we can do something, if we don't, then, we just keep on living what we are dealing with every day. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
So one last thing, yes. So I think the main message from this was that if we can repeal this act, of course it's not in our hands immediately, but of course when we unite, we raise the voice, let the government shift happen, then these are the things which can bring the change. So yes, I'm in support of repealing this act because it creates nothing but problems. But thank you again. So yes, let's be united to repeal this act. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Honveer. We have some leadership in this province that we really have to tip our hats to because it's so hard to challenge the status quo, and not very many of our elected officials will actually come forward. I'm not going to lie to you. I tried to get us some MLAs here today. It's very difficult to do. Honveer's the closest reality that we have here to an elected official, which we wish he was elected because he is an honorable man.
Did you ask David Eby to speak?
Of course. You know what? We actually, I'll fill you in on something if you're not aware of this. 3 years ago, we tried to recall David Eby, and we kicked off that recall right outside of his constituency office then. And that was, we did reach out to NDP members, David Eby. They closed the office down, which is why we're here on a Saturday. There was no point coming here on a weekday when less than you can attend for them to close anyhow. And actually, Dr. Charles Hoffe was here with us. Okay, so our next speaker here today is going to be Garry Neufeld, and I just want to read a bit about this in case people aren't aware of what's going on for Garry. we have witnessed a lack of common sense take hold. Sorry about that. A centralized approach to controlling our ability to challenge status quo's ideology has become increasingly protected through branding and labeling anyone who has their own opinion, including the belief that there are only two genders. This is so entrenched now that we are standing here today with Garry Neufeld, who has been subjected to a lawsuit of $750,000 for refusing to recognize that he believes is a delusion, that there are many genders, which he considers nothing more than a lie. Integrity is in short supply. And these days we are living through, so we must stand up to this nonsense. Our government, special interests, minorities, LGBTQ plus groups must be held accountable for the harm they have done to children, many of who face lifelong regret and trauma with their whole future impacted by a sexual agenda. Please welcome Garry Neufeld to speak to us today about what is happening to him and the reason this is even possible. The legislation that empowers school boards and teachers to carry out these injustices, the Infant Act.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see so many friends here.
Yeah.
I don't know where the protesters are.
Very new of you guys. I see 77 of you guys. Thank you for the support. If you can like and share, that would be great.
One of my strengths is telling stories because I have a lot of stories to tell. I worked with special needs kids for many years. And this goes back probably about 20 years. I had a 15-year-old girl on probation. Her mother was a heroin addict, and they tried to put her in a foster home, but she kept running away from the foster home and back to her mother. So they basically, he was officially in care of the government, but she got pregnant, and we all knew that she just didn't have the skills or ability to raise a child, and her mother certainly wasn't going to raise a child. So they called her into the office and said that she was old enough to consent to an abortion. And well, she didn't want to get an abortion. She thought that was morally wrong. So they said, well, why don't you bring your boyfriend in here and we'll talk to both of you. Her boyfriend was in jail. We got him a pass. Went to the Planned Parenthood office, and they persuaded, he was opposed to abortion, but they persuaded her to sign a consent. They said, according to the Infant Act, you're old enough, you're a mature minor, you can make this decision on your own. And so she signed the consent. Her boyfriend broke up with her. She took a bus all the way into Vancouver, had her abortion, came back, and told her mother that she done the deed. Her mother said, you murdered my grandchild. I wish there was a happy ending to the story, but that girl took her life. And this is what happens when our Infants Act gives so much authority to young people to make major decisions in their life. There's another issue with that became evident, and that is there's a vaccine called Gardasil. Apparently, it's a fairly safe vaccine. But it is given to girls between the age of 29 and 26 to prevent HPV-related cancers and genital warts. HPV also causes sterility. And school teachers are encouraging young children at school to take this vaccine because you don't have to tell your parents. It will prevent a very dangerous STD. And recently, we've been horrified by the fact that young girls who are caught up in the transgender nonsense are giving consent to have their breasts removed by mastectomy clinics. You know, there's a mastectomy clinic here in Vancouver that does mastectomies, legitimate ones, on women who have breast cancer. And if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, I think they pay $1,500 for an adult to get a mastectomy. But if it's a teenage girl that wants to remove perfectly healthy breasts, $3,500.
So the teenage girl's future, the cancer victim.
And this is the result of our very draconian Infants Act that does nothing to improve the life of any infant or child. I wanted to go on and talk about public education. Everybody thinks that I'm totally opposed to SOTI, and I challenge you to look anywhere to see if I had said that it should be done away with. Teachers' unions have been opposing standardized testing for decades. The Fraser Institute found that our BC student achievement has declined more sharply than any other province since 2018. That's mainly due to the curriculum changes. So I believe that the whole education system is rotten and needs to be overhauled from top to bottom. Also, the mental health of our students has never been lower. It's declining drastically. No wonder. Kids go to school and they're being frightened by pandemic scaremongering and climate alarmism. They're being shamed about their race due to the policy of indigenization of education and all this anti-colonialism nonsense. Their innocence is being destroyed by pornographic books in their libraries, and they're being confused about their sexual identity. They are being alienated not only from their parents, but from their extended families. In families that I have seen a child transition, it has always been in the middle of a divorce or it is precipitated a divorce. And it is quite often driven whole extended families apart with the aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas start arguing over the idea of transition. Now, boards of education, and especially Chilliwack, are so beholden to unions, they won't let anybody speak up in a public meeting. They're shouted down, their mics are turned off, the lights are turned off, security dragged them out of there, they're not listening. So, I suggest that the BC government appoint a royal commission to travel around the province and ask BC parents what they really want. It would be similar to the National Citizens Inquiry. This hasn't been done since 1988. I first became involved in education when the Sullivan Commission went around the province and asked parents for their input. One of the things that was very popular in those days was the concept of schools of choice and charter schools. Well, the BC Teachers Federation wasn't a very powerful lobby group back in 1988, but there's no way they wanted any charter schools in BC, so they circled their wagons, and they now have complete control of the provincial government. They have control of the Minister of Education. They have control of David Eby. They have control of the medical establishment. And this is just one union, but they are a powerful union with a lot of members. So also I believe that if there's a Royal Commission to examine education, they shouldn't just stop with K-12 education. They need to look at post-secondary education because a lot of these crazy toxic ideas are being hatched in our universities. Children are being controlled by what goes on in the faculties of education, psychology, arts, history, gender studies, and even science. They've all abandoned science and rational decision making, and everything is based on a radical NDP ideology. The BC School Act declares that public education must be non-sectarian. That includes political sects as well as religious sects. Teachers are training our children to be foot soldiers for the NDP revolution. That has got to stop. I have come to the belief that gender ideology has all the earmarks of a religious cult. Instead of worshiping a transcendent God up there somewhere, they're worshiping themselves. They're seeing themselves as their own creator. And they are modifying their bodies to suit what they think is the true God, which is themselves. It's a rather lonely job. And I don't know how much time I have, but I just wanted to briefly say that there's been a lot of conservatives that have been trying to push the idea of fiscal conservatism, but leave social conservatism out of it. A few years ago, I got an award as a community hero in Chilliwack. I got it from my conservative member of parliament. 2 weeks later, I got an email from the Conservative Party of BC that I'd been kicked out of the Conservative Party. Well, why was that? Well, because Aaron O'Toole, the leader of the Conservatives, who was trying to cleanse the Conservative Party of all social conservatives,
94 views.
saw me standing beside Derek Sloan, who got kicked out of the Conservative Party for his conservative views. I believe that fiscal conservatism without social conservatism is nothing but greedy capitalism. And I believe that conservatism needs social conservatives to have a heart and to have a soul. And they keep the rest of the party honest. And so with those are my remarks. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Garry.
No, we're on a very tight schedule today. Yeah, we have very supportive people about legislation in BC. How are you?
Everybody that doesn't really understand what integrity is, it's a man or a woman who is willing to take one for the team. Barry Neufeld has been fined $750,000 because he refuses to recognize that there are more than two genders. Like, there are two genders, everybody, and then everything else after that is a mental illness, and we need to get back to reality.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you that yesterday morning, my lawyer filed an appeal with a real court appealing the ridiculous decision, judgment of the BC Human Rights Tribunal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As big a round of applause as we can get for Barry possible right now. Everybody make some
Yeah.
noise! One of the bravest men we have in this province and actually in this country to take that kind of a hit. He's right up there with Dr. Charles Hoffe, okay?
Yeah.
You know, we're so lucky here today. I want you to know that I actually have my biggest heroes are here today. Dr. Charles Hoffe, Billboard Chris, Garry Neufeld.
Marcella, Desjarlais.
You know, we're learning about other politicians stepping up, and we know that all of you are the heroes too, because behind every good person that stands with that person, we're like their bodyguards right now, and they need us more than ever. So thanks.
Yeah.
So our next speaker here is just what can I say? I'm gonna read this out because I don't want to get any of it wrong. I mean, this guy is incredible. I'm just gonna say he's one of my heroes,
Nice to see you
and
again.
we're very blessed to have him here today. So introducing Chris Elston, aka Billboard Chris.
Yeah.
If there has ever been consistency in proving that every child is born perfectly the way they truly are, it's Chris Elston. Many people, I believe, miss the mark because we are all struggling in our own ways. And as a father, Chris knows that children are easily influenced and vulnerable and need space. from added stress, like learning about pronouns and considering sexual preferences at a young age. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. Yeah.
We are all extremely grateful that Chris has taken the time to be here with us today on his anniversary.
Yeah.
And he will be sharing the hard truths about how this agenda is being pushed on our children. Let's hear from Chris!
Yeah. I see 97 you guys. Thank you for the support. Like and share, please. Let's get this out. Billboard Chris.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Chris.
Yeah.
It's my anniversary, so despite what BC MLA Amelia Holtby, who was elected as a BC Conservative, recently said when she called me a rage-baiting incel, I am married and I have 2 daughters. So I think she needs to maybe look up to that. 2 daughters who were born beautiful just as they are, no drugs or scalpels needed. And that is the message we should be sending all of our children. So briefly, let me explain who I am, and then I'm going to do a quick education on this madness of gender ideology and what is being done to kids. I know a lot of you will have heard this before, but it's always good to hear it again. So my name's Chris Elston. I live out in South Surrey. And for 5.5 years now, I've been on a mission to raise awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in the history of modern medicine, which is this insane practice of trying to change the sex of children with puberty-blocking drugs, which have never been approved for this purpose, the opposite sex's hormones, and surgeries. We know for a fact they are doing double mastectomies, as Barry mentioned, on children as young as 14 years old. I recently ran into an anesthesiologist at a conference in Washington State, actually, but he's a Vancouver anesthesiologist. And he told me at this clinic in False Creek, where they do double mastectomies every day, they do them for women who have cancer, of course, but they do them on girls for gender.
Love that clinic.
Yay. Let's give a hand to this guy who wants to abuse kids, everybody.
Boo!
This guy thinks 14-year-old girls should have their breasts cut off.
Go away, sick bastard.
Anyway, at this clinic in Falls Creek, the doctors pay when they do a double mastectomy for cancer is $1,500. When they cut off the breast of a little girl for gender, they're getting paid $3,500. There's a financial incentive to them to do it. But the good news is the people are fighting back. The anesthesiologist refuses to work there anymore, and other nurses have quit because they're getting tired of this. Here, take the mic.
No, do you remember when I slapped you upside the head?
You slapped me.
Yeah.
When did you slap me?
2020.
December 31st?
Something like that.
Oh, you're the guy that was laying on the ground after I knocked you to the ground and you went to the hospital?
Yeah.
I saw on your social media. No, I didn't. But I saw on your social media. Oh, they arrested me, but then they released me right away.
Yeah.
I saw on your social media that you said I was advocating for the genocide of transgender people.
Which is untrue.
I saw that you were also fundraising to get your teeth fixed after that, even though there was nothing wrong with your teeth. And at first you had complained that I broke your knee. But then you said that your arm was broken. So what was it? Your teeth, your arm, or your leg that was broken? Fancy running into you here. Anyway, I'm sorry you want to sterilize kids, man. This is what we deal with.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, this is a gay man who is a terrible representative for his community.
Well, he should be
Because
allowed to
the
speak.
intelligent gay people understand that historically these kids with severe gender dysphoria from a young age, a lot of them grew up to be gay. But he wants kids that were just like him, except much smarter when they were younger. He wants them to grow up and be named and sterilized. Because that's what's happening. So anyway, for 5.5 years, I've been traveling the world. First Canada, back in 2020, I quit my job. I used to have a real job. I was a financial advisor, but I thought it would be better for me to quit my job so I could deal with people like that and get punched in the head by Antifa, which is, in all honesty, a much more satisfying career because it's a purpose-driven life, and we are winning. We are stopping this child abuse all over the world. It has essentially been stopped now in Finland, in Sweden, in the UK, in Norway, Denmark, in Italy, in New Zealand, even 2 states in Australia, which is constantly giving Canada a run for its money in the battle for most woke nation on the planet. Even Queensland and the Northern Territory in Australia have stopped this. And in Canada, where I've always thought we'd probably be last to fix this because our politicians here are as weak as anywhere in the world. We have in Alberta, Danielle Smith stopped this for kids under 16 years of age. And for the first time, we finally have BC conservative MLAs speaking out against this child abuse. So when they get into power, which I believe they will in the next election, hopefully we elect an actual conservative and not someone like Peter Milobar, who won't do a thing about this. But anyway, let's get back to what's going on with kids. There is an ideology out there that teaches there is such a thing as a gender identity. That we all have a gender identity. What is a gender identity? Nobody can tell you. I know this because I've asked this question of thousands of people on the streets all over the world. They all give you a different answer or they can't answer. But ultimately, if you were to listen to the world's most prestigious authorities on this subject, like the doctors at Boston Children's Hospital, for example, which is the #1 ranked pediatric hospital in America, they say that it's little things like a little girl, a toddler who tries to pee standing up, a boy who tries to pee sitting down, trying on a sibling's clothing, or playing with opposite gender toys. These are all signs that your child is transgender and can be treated. The most used resource in the world, the genderbread person, this cute little image of a gingerbread man, says that your gender identity is based on your personality, your job, your hobbies, likes and dislikes, roles in society, and expectations upon you. What do your roles in society have to do with your gender? What does your job have to do with your gender? If a girl wants to climb trees and play in the dirt and hates wearing dresses, well, guess what? She's a beautiful girl.
Yeah.
She's not a boy because she doesn't conform to stereotypes. This whole ideology hinges on one thing only, what the left would call regressive and sexist stereotypes. So they're against that. But they have this blind spot. Like this man who was just here, who I sent to the hospital a few years ago, after he sucker punched me from behind. He has a blind spot. I don't believe he's evil. I believe he's extremely deceived and arrogant and ignorant. But he doesn't understand that just because a boy doesn't conform to stereotypes, that doesn't mean we should be cutting off his genitals. That's abuse. There's a man here with a sign. If genitals don't define your gender, how does cutting them off affirm it? The whole thing makes no sense. But what's being done under the false title of gender affirming care, which is sex denying harm, because like all things on the left, they use euphemisms. What's being done is the greatest child abuse scandal in our lifetimes. And it is one of the most insane things that human beings have ever done. Teaching children that they were born wrong. What kind of message is that sending? If you were a little girl today, and your parents or your school or your counselor or your therapist says to you, sweetheart, you are actually supposed to be something you're not. It's disgusting. That is psychologically abusive. Never mind the physical harm that is being done. This drug has never been approved for these purposes. The technical term for these puberty blockers, they are gonadotropin-releasing hormone agonists. They stop your pituitary gland from releasing two hormones called luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone, which are, when puberty comes, these are the hormones which trigger you to produce estrogen if you're a girl, or testosterone if you're a boy. This is what triggers the onset of your secondary sex characteristics to develop. While kids are on this drug, girls' breasts won't develop, their hips won't get wider, boys' genitals won't grow, they won't get facial hair, they won't get the deep voice, all the things that happen during puberty. Now the left tells you that these drugs are reversible. That's the second lie they tell you. The number one lie they tell you is that kids will kill themselves if we don't transition them. Why do they say that? They say it because the only way you can justify this child abuse is to say that kids will die if you don't do it. It is coercive. It is used to coerce parents to go along with this. Because parents, not knowing anything about this subject, they do what a lot of parents do, and they take their child to the gender clinic to see the specialists. And what do the specialists tell them? What do these cult members working at the BC Children's Hospital Gender Clinic tell the parents? They tell them you can have a dead daughter or a live son. This same script is used all over the world, and it's a lie. You know it's a lie for various reasons. The only real study that's ever been done on this was out of Finland, where they looked at 24 years worth of data from 1996 to 2019. Over those 24 years, there were 7 suicides of kids attending the gender clinic out of a sample of 2,000. It worked out to an annualized rate of 0.052%. They compared them to a sample group of 17,000 kids. The suicide rate was only slightly higher, and of course, every suicide is a tragedy. But we're not talking about some epidemic here. It was 0.05%. In Finland, none of these kids were lost to follow-up. Unlike here, or unlike in America, when you go to the doctor, if a girl goes to the doctor here and gets a prescription for testosterone, and then stops taking it 6 months later, they have no idea. Because there's no follow-up. They're going somewhere else, they get lost. In Finland, that wasn't the case. Every single child who attended, their future medical situation is known about. And what came out just last week is that the girls trying to become boys saw a 300% increase in psychiatric problems. And for the boys trying to transition to girls, over this same 25 years worth of data, the boys trying to transition into girls had a 600% increase in psychiatric problems. Of course, when you lie to a child, you tell them there's something they're not, when you sterilize them, when you cut off their body parts, of course it's going to be bad for them. This whole thing is based on a lie that these children were born wrong. And they call this affirming care. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's abuse. The affirming message is that our children are beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels needed.
Yeah.
They follow up these puberty blockers with the opposite sex hormones. So why are they doing this? What's the rationale? If you were to talk to the trans activists, they would say that it would be too traumatizing for a girl to develop into a woman or for a boy to look like a man. So they have to keep them looking neutral by stopping puberty, and then they have to make them look like the opposite sex by giving them the opposite sex's hormones. This is all about passing as the opposite sex. And the first people to push this were men, adult men, who had a difficult time passing as women because they went through puberty. And they have a deep voice and broad shoulders and a hairy face. And so it was the idea of these men that if they had gone through puberty, they'd be happier. Well, who are these men? These adult men, these middle-aged men who transition, this is a totally different subject than what's happening to kids. These are men with a paraphilia, which is the polite term for a sexual perversion. These are men who get aroused by the idea of looking like a woman, presenting themselves as a woman, and going into women's spaces. And it was some billionaire men like Jennifer Pritzker, Martine Rothblatt, and John Stryker who were the first to fund these gender clinics off this idea that being transgender is innate and that we must stop them from looking like their sex because that would be too traumatic. And So the idea goes that being transgender is innate, then obviously kids must be transgender. And if you take it that far, well, obviously there are transgender fetuses as well, aren't they? The left says this specifically. A Democrat in the US last year said it's during the second trimester that a baby's gender identity starts to form. This is insane. But this is what we're dealing with. And for a long time, people were cowed into silence. Why were we quiet about this? Because the left has been successful in conflating gay with trans. And if you were to say anything about this child abuse, you were deemed to be a bigot, to be a homophobe, to be a transphobe, to be a racist. This is their only tactic. They hurl names at you, hoping that it will silence you, hoping that it will derail your career. But the LGB should be separated from the two. LGB is sexual attraction. Transgenderism is a denial of reality. 100%. And again, not to go over this point again and again, but nobody on the left can even tell you what it means for a girl to be a boy. They can't define these terms. Why? Because being transgender does not exist. Nobody is transgender. We are all male or female, and that's it. And that's okay. And you don't have to conform to stereotypes. You can be an effeminate male, you can be a masculine woman. That's okay. It doesn't mean you're some alternate class of human being called transgender. And that is the fundamental lie underlying all of this. There is no such thing as a transgender child. These drugs are being used off-label. Every systematic review that has been done in the world, first in Finland, then Sweden, then the UK. The HHS in the US conducted one last year. Even in Canada, in Ontario, out of the university there, they conducted a systematic review last year, which found there's no evidence this is helping kids. Why haven't you heard about that study? Because it got buried. Johanna Olsen Kennedy, one of the chief gender ghouls in the United States, who ran the busiest gender clinic at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, was given $10 million by the National Institute of Health to conduct a study. She did. She didn't like the results, so she buried it. It's still buried. Because none of this is helping kids. And like so many other fraudulent practices in the past, this is the latest one we're dealing with. It's no different than saying there was some scientific evidence for lobotomies, or for the satanic panic, or for repressed memory syndrome, or for multiple personality disorders. These are all bogus psychiatric diagnoses. Nobody is transgender. What we are dealing with essentially is a worldwide cult that started more than 100 years ago, really started to pick up steam in the 60s and 70s in academia, and then when the gay rights movement was won, around 2010 to 2015 all across the West, we had all these NGOs sitting on billions of dollars, which had a new objective. They don't close up shop. They don't say, yay, we achieved our objective, we won gay marriage. They move on to the next thing because they have to keep the donations flowing. They have to keep everyone employed. And the new objective for the left was trans rights. And they've been successful in taking a mental illness and turning it into the next civil rights movement. If you look at the kids who go to these gender clinics, according to the Tavistock in England, 70% of them had 5 or more coexisting mental health comorbidities. They didn't just have 1 or 2 or 3 other problems, they had 5 or more. Autism is prevalent in a majority of these kids. Sexual abuse is prevalent in a majority of these kids. ADHD, borderline personality disorder, mothers with borderline personality disorder, bad home lives, fathers who are missing. According to the systematic review in England, the children at the gender clinic, their parents were 10 times as likely to be sex offenders. So we are dealing with the most struggling kids in the world. We're dealing with kids in state care. We're here in BC. A psychologist for the BC Ministry of Children and Family Development, Dr. Wallace Wong, said at the Vancouver Public Library he was transitioning more than 1,000 kids in BC, including more than 500 in our foster system. In state care. There are only 6,000 kids in state care in BC, and 500 were being transitioned by one guy. Guess what? 68% of children in state care in BC are Indigenous. Indigenous kids today are being sterilized. Yet our politicians want a virtue signal about a fraud that happened decades ago. They want to pretend that there are still 215 murdered kids found in a mass grave in Kamloops. They want to use this for political points, yet Indigenous kids today are being harmed by this government that uses them for political points.
Ridiculous.
The bottom line is, every single thing about this is a lie. That might sound extreme to some of you, so I encourage you to start doing your own research, because the more you look into this, the more you will find all of gender ideology is based on nothing but a lie. This idea that we have a gender identity started from just a couple of men. The word was first used in 1964 by an academic at UCLA named Robert Stoller. He coined the term gender identity. It picked up steam in academia. It's now pushed by feminist scholars in all over universities. A funny thing, modern day feminists don't even know what a woman is themselves, yet they claim to stand up for women's rights. So we just have this massive lie that has infected the entire Western world, that is pushed by governments, that is pushed by intergovernmental bodies like the UN, like the WHO, like the World Economic Forum, although they're really just more interested in economic issues and networking. I've been to the World Economic Forum the last 2 years in Davos, and to be honest with you, I had about 98% support from everyone attending. But this is pushed by a handful of people in these elite institutions and by all these leftist governments, which are run by cowards, who even when they know this is wrong, still push it, because the only thing they care about is getting elected again. But we have to stop being afraid to speak about this, because our most precious resource, our children, they are being harmed. And it is up to us to protect them. The government have proven they're not going to do it. It's up to us. So lobby your government officials, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your school teachers and your principals, because one conversation at a time, we are going to stop this child abuse. Thank you.
Yeah! Billboard Chris, everybody. I see 114 of you. Thank you for the support. I don't see chat. If you can like and share, that'd be great. Thank you.
That's not good enough, you guys. This is Billboard Chris here. I need to hear a huge round of applause. Chris is an international public hero advocating to protect children from gender-affirming abuse. And this is one of the men that I truly just admire, I honor, and thank you for being here today, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Well, this has been a complete success as far as I'm concerned. You know, the greatest thing here is that we have these excellent spokespeople for these specific issues that we're facing. And James Lowen being here, let's hear it for James, because every one of these very important speeches that are being held here today are going to travel so much farther than this office. So thank you, James Lowen.
Thank you, James.
I think you are going to be doing this introduction.
Yeah.
Because if I do this, I'm going to my house.
Oh, fuck you guys, transphobe! Fucking transphobe!
This is what we're talking about, right? The left has a real issue with life.
Hey, hey!
You don't have a
Can we get a police officer over here? We have some lunatics.
Where's my glasses?
We need the police! Let them go through.
Yeah, so this is two parents with a baby.
All right, guys, we're gonna carry on. Come on back.
Comes with your child and use your child's stroller as a battering ram.
Important speech for you all here. So just let the crazy people go and let's get back to business here, okay? Okay, let's get on with the event here, okay, everybody?
Daniel, come on over. Oh, sorry. All right, you guys. Staring down the barrel of a loaded gun and choosing not to pull the trigger. Who gives up their livelihood to protect civilians? Doctors. That too. No amount of fear-mongering or propaganda will turn a lie into reality. Our public health minister and public health officer ignored warnings. Even when evidence raised serious concerns about the safety and effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines. Concerns that, in some cases, point to severe and even deadly outcomes. When adverse effects began to appear, it created conflicts to provide or to prevent this medical treatment. This is the line in the sand. A man of oath stands on that hill, even when it costs him his livelihood, and does not waver from the fact that those with no prior symptoms have, in some cases, not fared well following administration of these vaccines. Guys, can we calm it down over there, please? Is our lawyer still here? All right. So, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to our beloved Dr. Charles Hoffe.
Yeah.
To understand why it's essential for healthcare professionals to remain independent from government influence, and why we must repeal the Health Professions and Occupations Act. Dr. Hoffe.
Yeah.
I wanted to speak to you today about what is probably the most draconian bit of health regulation that has ever been put in place outside of a communist dictatorship. I wanted to speak to you about what was initially Bill 36, that is now the Health Practitioners and Occupations Act. When I moved to Canada from South Africa in 1990, I came here because this was a land of freedom and opportunity. And when I moved to BC from northern Manitoba in 1993, I came here because I found BC to be a wonderful province full of wonderful people that had enormous potential. But during those years since I came here, I have been horrified at how those freedoms and our rights have been steadily eroded and taken away. Now, I am a family doctor and I work in the BC interior, and some of you might know that I was charged with professional misconduct for exposing the harm that was done to my own patients by the COVID vaccines. And if you think back to the pandemic that is still probably clearly in your heads, you will remember all of the absurd restrictions that were put on us to keep us safe. And in fact, there were two reasons for all of the restrictions. The first was to keep us safe, and the second one was to prevent the collapse of the healthcare system. Well, I want to talk to you about the collapse of the healthcare system. And I want to talk to you about what the government in BC is doing to keep you safe. Do you remember the restrictions put on us very early on in the pandemic? Do you remember?
We'll get that.
Do you remember the children who weren't allowed to go to school, the children, and when they were allowed to go back, being forced to wear masks so they could hardly breathe and see each one another's faces and sit 2 meters apart, terrified that they were going to get this disease that posed no risk to them?
Yeah.
That was child abuse, but it was to keep them safe.
Right.
Do you remember going into restaurants where if you sat down, you didn't have to wear a mask, but if you stood up, you did?
Yeah.
And that was to keep you safe.
Right.
Do you remember all the travel restrictions to stop the spread of the virus that was already everywhere?
Don't go to a
It
park.
was to keep you safe. It was absolutely absurd. And then, just to make sure that you were really safe, they banned doctors from prescribing ivermectin. When there were 60 peer-reviewed studies, now there's well more than 200 showing the safety and effectiveness of ivermectin for preventing or treating COVID. And yet they banned doctors from prescribing it so that you would have nothing to keep you out of hospital when you got COVID. And of course, this was all to keep you safe. Because although ivermectin was a Nobel Prize-winning drug before the pandemic, suddenly it became very dangerous if it was used for COVID. It was absurd, and this was all to keep you safe. So, the Health Practitioners and Occupations Act, which came into effect last week, we are told by the government is to protect patients. So I want to talk to you about what they think is keeping you safe. This is the most absurdly draconian legislation that I have ever heard of. When I saw what was happening to my patients from the COVID vaccines, I wrote to Dr. Bonnie Henry to tell her about the rate of vaccine injuries that I personally saw in my own patients. And I was charged with professional misconduct for spreading misinformation. And after dragging me through 4 years of legal hell with this charge of professional misconduct, shortly before my trial, they just dropped all the charges. In other words, the definition of misinformation somehow changed. And that's the problem with misinformation. As we discovered in the pandemic, misinformation is simply anything the government doesn't agree with. And so it changes all the time, like the charges against me. So now, as a doctor, I can tell you that I'm a family doctor, and most doctors in private practice form a professional corporation because you pay slightly less tax. I stand to receive a $500,000 fine plus 6 months in jail if I say something that the government doesn't agree with. And here I stand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because all that is needed for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. And so I will not keep silent.
Yeah.
And if you're not an incorporated physician, if you're just like a hospital, you work in a hospital or something like that, then the fine's only $200,000 plus 6 months in jail. You get a flight to it. So who wants to be a doctor in BC? Who wants to be a nurse when you're not allowed to say anything that the government disapproves of? You cannot give your patient informed consent for any treatment if you just have to parrot off whatever they told you you have to say.
EB's not my doctor.
We know that this government believes there's more than 2 genders. So if you as a doctor decide there are actually only 2 genders, because if you check the chromosomes, that's what it shows. Follow the science. You will get charged with spreading misinformation that there are only 2 genders with the $500,000 fine. So if you ever wondered why the healthcare system is collapsing, just ask David Eby, because this is his work. I work in the BC interior. The main referral center that I send my patients to that need specialist care is Kamloops. Last time I referred a patient there a couple of months ago to a cardiologist, I was informed that the wait time to see a cardiologist is now 2.5 years. There's not a single rheumatologist there taking any new patients. I have a rheumatology patient that I've sent to 4 different specialists, Davison, Kelowna, and Kamloops, and other places, and nobody will take them because the healthcare system is so stressed out. And what made it so stressed out? Well, of course, Bill 36 is the cherry on the cake. But before that, we had a pandemic. And in the pandemic, a lot of doctors or nurses or other healthcare workers, some were terrified of the virus because of the propaganda on their TV screens. And some were terrified of the vaccine because they were awake. And some were terrified of the government. So there were a huge amount of healthcare workers that quit during the pandemic. And we were told in 2021 that there were 1 million people in British Columbia with no family doctor. Here we are, 4 years later, and I need to tell you that despite the bragging of our Minister of Health and all of the US doctors that they've persuaded to come and work here, there are now 1.3 million people with no family doctor. In other words, all of their efforts to recruit new doctors have resulted in such a loss of doctors because they're just leaving the province or going into retirement. And most doctors don't have the courage to stand up and say while they're retiring because they're scared of the misinformation deal. But it is tragic when senior doctors, veteran, experienced, seasoned doctors are forced into early retirement because of absurd legislation. It is a terrible loss to our healthcare system. We are losing our very best doctors because of this. And bringing in some new medical grad out of medical school does not replace a seasoned specialist with a family doctor with 30 years of experience. They are not the same animal. So this is tragic what the government is doing to our healthcare system. But I just want to tell you a couple of other things. I've only told you about the $500,000. Closer microphone. Yes. Often when I have patients that come to speak to me, they ask me, so who will have access to what I tell you? Where will is what I tell you? Because as a family doctor, down the years, I have had thousands of people tell me extremely personal and deep things that they don't want anyone else to know about. And after my office was burned in the Lytton fire, I had so many patients that came to me and told me that they were glad that their records went up in smoke. Because there were so many things that the secrets of their past that they had told me that they were just glad of burned. But now, through this HBOA, the government has put in place that they can seize your medical records from your doctor at any time without a warrant, as they see fit. So the sanctity of the trust of the doctor-patient relationship is null and void through this, because literally the government can seize your most secret medical records, and of course they're doing it to keep you safe. And safe from who? Safe from your doctor. I mean, it is absolutely absurd. And to make it any worse, the other thing that they've done is they have put in place that any healthcare worker, and this is not just doctors, this is dentists, this is physiotherapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, they can all be forced to have any vaccine at any time as a licensing requirement. So if you now work, so if you want to work in healthcare, you have to give up autonomy over your own body to your licensing authority, who will decide what you will be injected with next. This is who would want to be in healthcare in BC? You would have to be brain dead.
Absolutely. What a deterrent to have doctors practice here in BC.
And if the vaccine mandates aren't enough, and if the misinformation fines aren't enough, and the search and seize without authority are not enough, they have now put in place that there is no right of appeal. When I get the $500,000 fine, I am not allowed to appeal it. They are not obliged to even give me a hearing.
No democracy.
This is a complete assertion of democracy. No doctor in there, or nurse, or psychologist, or any healthcare professional can possibly work under this, where you have no right of appeal, you have no recourse. There is all of the sort of judicial safeguards that are supposed to be in place in a democracy have been completely nullified. This is the most absurdly draconian health law imaginable. No wonder our healthcare system is collapsing. So all we can do is try to educate people. Hopefully, in the fall, they will revisit this, because this legislation was pushed through Parliament with literally just over a third of it was debated, and then David Eby said, enough's enough, we're voting. So in other words, those who voted on it didn't even know what they were voting for. It was just pushed through by David Eby, and it is destroying healthcare in this province. So, since all that is needed for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing, thank you for not doing nothing. We must spread this news. If you can get a recording of this, please spread. People need to know what the authorities are doing to us. And that the idea that they are doing this to keep us safe is absolutely absurd. You don't keep people safe by chasing away the doctors. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so
Of course, I talk way too close. I turned it out, so. But here's the thing. Okay, so what is that? A $200,000 fine? A $500,000 fine? 6 months in jail per offense. Your private records between you and your doctor are now government business. This is tyranny at a level where they're controlling what our medical practitioners actually have to inject into their bodies to practice medicine here for us. This is tyranny on a level that we actually started this 3 years ago, right here on this street, because at the end of the day, when you have no right to your bodily autonomy anymore, you don't know if that's going to be a bullet in that shot. There have been so many adverse reactions from these different vaccines coming out from COVID that people they've died suddenly, they've dropped dead immediately, they've got Bell's palsy, turbo cancer is one of them, myocarditis, pericarditis. These different side effects are real. So when they told you there was virility in these vaccines, that they were safe and effective, that was 2 lies. What there is virility in is those injuries that happen to these people. And these doctors, like Dr. Charles Hoffe, who actually stood on integrity, put their own livelihood in jeopardy for all of us, regardless, knowing 100% that if they don't go along with the government narrative and follow the government landscape, then they're going to get themselves in a whole bunch of trouble. So we owe it to our doctors. They're true heroes that actually stood up and fought for us, regardless of what they lost. Let's hear it for Dr. Charles Hoffe!
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that we're fighting for now. And this actually, we had Honveer and Randhawa come up here and speak about the LPOA. They're using that exact same platform that they hijacked our healthcare sector and our College of Physicians and Surgeons
to hijack your legal process. If you're paying attention, your legal process, that's important to you. Why? Because if you have a conflict with the government and they're controlling the outcome, because every single one of our representatives works first and foremost for the state, who do you think's gonna win? So this is it. We're at that point, that critical juncture right now. As it is, these 5 bills we're standing on here today. The Infant Act, you have no parental rights. Triple, you have no property rights. The LPOA, you have no legal rights. The HPOA, you have no right to your bodily autonomy. This is the time to wake up, BC. This is the time to get involved, to repeal these bills. And the only way that's going to happen is if we can recall the NDP. So that's why we're here today for that initiative.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of more speeches here for you yet. I feel kind of funny. I have to introduce myself because Marcella's nowhere around. So most of you already know who I am. I'm the founder of a group called Stand United. We started fighting against the tyrannical behavior of the government based on the fact that we were segregated from society. We weren't willing to take a jab. And businesses were considered essential, other businesses were considered unessential, these different reasons. So I'm not going to go on and on about myself, but I think it's important that people realize when you actually have an initiative, this is possible, but it's not possible if you don't actually put it into fruition. And that's kind of what I bring to the table. That's what I've always brought to the table. Is I want to see BC unite. If we unite together, that's what they're afraid of. So the left is all in lockstep, and they're working together. They're loving life because you know what? Even I think it's a populist nature. A populist nature is you like your independence. You really just want to focus on your own life, and if you could just function in society and everything went smoothly for you, you probably would never come to an event like this. Because we just want our independence, we want our privacy, we want to have the ability to succeed. But we're facing a government right now that is specifically working on an ideology to basically make sure that you own nothing so they're happy. So we become the renters, we watch our children be mentally and physically abused at school. The propaganda that's happening needs to be taken right out of the education sector. Elementary and middle school students don't need to be learning about sexual ideology. They need to be learning about the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. They need to understand that there's so much more to life than what's happening behind closed doors of adults. And that's where it needs to stop. But anyways, that being said, I want to bring up Daniel Field. This young man, he understands basically what most adults don't, and that's to take the initiative yourself, to actually take a responsibility on yourself and drive the bus. He's not old enough to drive yet. How old are you? Well, this kid is 12 years old, guys. So he's going to be taking the reins on one of the recalls, and I want you all to listen to what he has to say because he understands what it's going to take. All the different components. But the one thing that it's really going to take is it's going to take for you guys all to pick up the rope and pull. Spread the word. If you're in this area and you think you can help him, he's going to need the help. So let's hear for him.
Yeah.
Right into the mic, Daniel.
Hello, Vancouver. and thank you for coming. My name is Daniel Field, and I am the grassroots campaign coordinator for the Recall Zone team in North Vancouver. I have a very simple and clear message for Minister Beaumont. We are here to fire you. Right now, we are staring at a $13.3 billion deficit, which is the largest nonprofit in history. As a minister, that is the definition of failure. A minister who spends your money recklessly while the people of North Vancouver Lonsdale struggle to keep a roof over their heads no longer represents the North Shore. To recall Beaumont, we need exactly 15,045 signatures. That's not just a target. That's the number of your parents, your workers, and most importantly, taxpayers. Now to close, I'd like to ask you a series of questions. Do we want 4 more years of Beaumont? No! Do we want our freedom and future back? Yes! Are we going to hit 15,045 signatures? Yes! Thank you.
Well done, son. So if I could see half of that kind of passion from the adults, I think we can do this, and I believe in it. I think that there's the possibility that if we take this initiative seriously, there's already 5 recalls kind of being talked about right now. There's one for Garry Bay, that's in Surrey. I'm going to be at the forefront of that one. I'm really excited about it. And he was the one who ran against Honveer, who is speaking here today. The guy who's running for mayor now. He only lost that riding by 22 votes. It's a heartbreak. But at the end of the day, we're going to try to get Garry Bay recall. 22 votes, right? So that's low-hanging fruit, people. That's easy to do because right now people are worried about losing their property. They're tired of all this stuff that's going on with the Soju 123 in the schools. I believe we've got this. There's the one for David Eby himself. There's a website for that. It's called recalleb.ca. Daniel's got his information there. But this is what it's going to take, because at the end of the day, I want to reiterate something with you all. This is so important. Do you want to be stuck with the NDP for the next 3 years? Hell no! Hey, ho, ho! David Eby's gotta go! Hey! David Eby's gotta go! Hey, ho, ho! David Eby's got to go! Right? Because we're going to be stuck with this guy unless we take the initiative now, and that's the whole thing. People got to realize this recall is real. If we can do this, it's not impossible, but it will take people to actually help. So I'm thinking each recall you're going to need 120 minimum to 150 people who can shift in and shift out, and that's basically what it's going to boil down to. Because it's not rocket science. A lot of people know that the NDP is collapsing our economy. Right? We have an 11-point-something billion deficit we have to live with right now, so that's terrible. Okay. Before the NDP took the government, they actually had a surplus of money. And now they've created all of this deficit. What do we have to show for it? Nothing. But I'll tell you what we do. We have a whole bunch of interest that we pay every single year on that can be going towards infrastructure, innovation, anything but interest. Okay? So this is the direction that our government is taking us, and we can't allow that any longer. But I do want to call up one more person, because we do have one more very important speech for you. This is about EDMA. And now what that means. Yes, EDMA is the Emergency Disasters and Management Act. And basically this bill, Marcella is going to tell you all about it, but it centralizes all the power. If they decide that there's an emergency situation that we have to live with, they can commandeer your land, they can take your farm animals, they can do a lot of different things to us. And there doesn't have to be a real emergency. So these are the things that they centralize all the power for the government, so they can actually control us whenever they decide that there's going to be something coming down the line. But anyways, Marcella, get up here.
All right, one more time. One more time. to run with a whole bunch of stuff. And it's the broader shift in governance. So whether you realize it or not, the Emergency and Disaster Management Act affects us all. Like, don't they all? This law was passed on November 8th in 2023, and it replaces the older Emergency Program Act. And it fundamentally reshapes how emergency powers are exercised in BC. Now, does anybody remember 2020 and 2021 when we were under emergency powers? Oh, okay, hands in the air. Does anybody remember? Okay, good. So this goes a little bit farther. Wonderful government that we have. So on the surface, this act is framed as modernization. Doesn't that sound great? It introduces an all-hazards approach, meaning the government can respond to wildfires and floods, that's good, public health crises, does anybody remember that? Climate-related risks, and emerging threats, like disinformation. Did you hear me? EDMA, Emergency Management Disaster Act, for disinformation. Right? Okay, so this gives the government powers. And I want you to pay attention to this. It expands what counts as an emergency, including long-term and undefined threats. It increases the government powers before, during, and after emergencies. And it reduces the need for traditional oversight. In other words, expanded government powers. Under EDMA, authority is no longer limited to declared emergencies. The government can act before an emergency is declared, continue acting after it ends, uses powers during mitigation and recovery phases indefinitely. Can I ask the people on my right over here to tone it down? Thank you. This includes their ability to order evacuations, seize or control property, restrict your travel, shut down or regulate businesses, direct land and infrastructure use. So traditionally, emergency powers required a formal declaration, like a clear line. EDMA removes that line. They have control over people, land, and the economy. People, like restricting your movement and gatherings. Where have I heard that before? Compelling individuals to provide services. They don't even have to pay you. They can enforce compliance with fines up to $1 million or imprisonment. Comply or else. Land and property. They can enter your property without a warrant. They can seize your land or resources and remove your personal property. Would you like me to read that again? Infrastructure and economy. This is your government. Control transportation and, enter property without a warrant, seize your land and resources, and remove your personal property. David Evy's a part of that, and that's why we're here. So they can do things for infrastructure and economy. How? Well, control the supply chain. They can direct business operations, and they can regulate economic activities. These are extraordinary powers now built into our law beyond the traditional limits. This weakens our local democracy. EDMA shifts decision-making away from communities. Woo! The province can now override your municipality, direct local government, and control how local funds are spent. This means that local knowledge is sidelined and community-led responses can be ignored. This is not just about efficiency, it's about who gets to decide. It's control of movements, gatherings, and communication. Your movement and gatherings are restricted to where people can go, limit or block travel between regions, shut down public spaces, prohibit protests or events, and I'll never stop, timing. They can enforce compliance through penalties. Communication. Control official messaging. Turn off the CBC. Okay? I'm telling you right now, turn off your TV. They can limit access to information, kind of like we can't read the news on Facebook. They can centralize approved sources, and they can restrict coordination of gatherings. So there is limited clarity on how far these controls can go. This is what David Media and the wonderful NDP have decided we needed in British Columbia.
My notes just up too. Thank you.
All right, thanks for saving the day. Okay. So, they can also use forced measures like forced evacuations, immediate removal from your home, which is not a bad thing when there's a fire or a flood, that's safety. And they can do it with limited notice or input, but no clear timeline for return. They don't have to have that. They can compel your labor or services, so individuals or businesses can be required to assist. Remember that fine or jail I said you don't? Wonderful. Compensation is unclear or delayed, and refusal may result in those penalties. Worker protections are not clearly defined. So if you're a volunteer and the government's telling you gotta do this, they don't have any clearly defined protection for you. These actions can occur without immediate judicial review. So we have things like vague definitions, broad power, terms like emergency, incident, disaster. They're broad and undefined. This means that interpretation becomes power. Power becomes flexible, and that's a risk of misuse that increases. And it's a shift toward permanent emergency governance. So this is no longer just a short-term response. EDMA creates a continuous cycle of mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Government is always in one phase where emergency-style powers risk becoming permanent. And that's part of the larger pattern. EDMA does not stand alone. It fits into a broader legislative pattern in BC, like the Professional Governance Act 2018, the government oversight over engineers and resource professionals. Unelected superintendent can take or direct bodies. The Health Professions and Occupations Act eliminates elected medical boards, government appointed regulators, licensing tied to compliance, limited appeal rights, or the Legal Professions Act. It reduces independence of lawyers, it introduces government influence to regulation, and it removes clear rights-based mandates. There's a shared pattern across these laws. All of them we see are this: a centralization of power, replacement of elected bodies with appointed ones, vague language enabling broad interpretation, a reduced ability to challenge decisions. We've heard that today. It's an increased control over professional speech and conduct.
It's communism.
There you go. Louder.
It's communism.
There we go.
And they want your money too.
There you go. So this is coordinated structure, and it's not isolated laws. And here's 7 key shifts that are happening right now that lawyer Gail Davison, she's retired, wrote. So number 1 is the loss of your democratic accountability. Number 2 is increased executive power. Number 3 is reduced legal recourse. Number 4 is compliance and speech control. Number 5 is the end of professional self-regulation. Number 6 is bureaucratic control over expertise. Number 7 are your rights becoming conditional privileges. Number 7, your rights becoming conditional privileges. And I'm going to say it one more time. Your rights becoming conditional privileges. Under EDMA and DRIPA and UNDRIP, the provinces retain final authority in emergencies, even on Indigenous land. I'm going to bring something in, and I want you all to think back. You will own nothing and be happy. The province retains final authority in emergencies, even on Indigenous lands. Now put that into perspective to everything that I've just told you beforehand. You think about that. There's no clear requirement for consent. In other words, FPIP goes out the window. Dig deeper, my friend. Dig deeper. There are larger things afoot here. Across other laws, similar patterns appear, and I've already said it. The centralized authority, broad discretion, state intervention in your private life, limited immediate recourse, and decisions based on interpretation. Those are different areas, but they have the same structure. Now what's at stake? Under EDMA, this framework could override protests, bypass democratic processes, centralize authority, normalize intervention based on perceived threats, the likelihood. And once powers like this exist, they're rarely rolled back. In closing, emergency preparedness matters, but it must not come at the cost of accountability, transparency, fundamental freedoms. A government must be strong, but also limited. Do you agree?
Yes.
Accountability. Do you agree?
Yes.
Because the real test of a democracy is not how it acts in calm times, but how it restrains itself in a crisis. EDMA raises serious questions about whether those limits are still in place. And that is something that every British Columbian should be paying attention to. Get it?
Yeah.
It's at that point in time, it's obvious that all of these bills are just based to control the population, not to give us the opportunity to be successful, but to take from us. Did we have our outro?
I just have to say something really quick. James was talking about his heroes, and I don't know if you heard me, but he missed me on that list. I'm serious. He's my hero. Wait, I just want to say something. This man, I see him day in and day out behind the scenes. You have no idea how many hours he puts into it. Not just posters, but wording and everything. Every introduction he has brought to you today is thoughtful. And I like to realize he's like asking me to write
Yes.
one. I just don't have it in me. You have to write it for me. He's creative.
Do you have X? Message, oh boy, it's Kale on that.
My hero. Can
That's
I
my
say that?
account. And I'll look into it.
Thanks a lot, guys. You know, honestly, we all have so much to be grateful for, and I think that for myself is that I just want to bring the best people to the platform when we're facing these issues. That's my priority.
Okay.
I'm glad you're here. More
Search.
people who show up.
Oh boy.
But this is all of you.
It's Kale.
Everybody who shared. Just let me read this because it's so important that you all are recognized for your
right there at the
efforts. Thank you all for your support in this initiative, sharing our event posters, taking the time to be here at this important moment in our province's history. This is a historical effort in BC. If we all pull together, we can succeed and elect a government that stands up for this province. We'd also like to thank our outstanding lineup of speakers for making this event possible. Dr. Charles Hoffe, Garry Neufeld, Chris Elson, Honveer Randhawa, Farm Bomb, Marcella Desjarlais, Daniel Field, Please stand involved and support the mental initiative closest to you. Efforts are underway at Point Grey, Huber, Surrey Gilbert, and Vernon. Reach out to the organizers. They need your support. Anyways, for everybody, all of you that took your time out of this day, much appreciation, much respect to every single one of you, and keep fighting because you know what? As Dr. Charles Hoffe reiterates time and time again, this evil business is only going to succeed if good people don't do anything about it. So let's fight!
Yeah! Yeah!
Thank you for being here.
Hey guys, so that's the event. Thank you for your support. My battery's gonna die, so I will keep this quick. Get involved. Let's end this NDP's tyrannical reign and make BC great. Thank you. Bye.